Martha Sullivan's weathered hands trembled slightly as she clutched the battered leather Bible to her chest. The gold leaf edges had long since faded to a dull yellow, the spine reinforced with clear tape that had yellowed with age. She stood before the imposing wrought-iron gates of her daughter Patricia's estate in Westchester County, just outside New York City. The late afternoon sun cast long shadows across the manicured lawn as Martha smoothed down her best blouse, faded lavender, cotton but clean and pressed for the occasion. The gate swung open with mechanical precision, revealing a curved driveway lined with perfectly trimmed hedges. Martha's sensible shoes crunched on the gravel as she made her way toward the sprawling colonial mansion that her daughter now called home. In her other hand she carried a ceramic tray, a third-grade art project from decades ago, filled with carefully arranged lemon cookies, their sweet aroma mingling with the scent of freshly cut grass. As Martha approached the grand entrance, the massive oak door swung open, revealing Patricia, sleek in a designer dress, her hair styled in an immaculate bob that framed her carefully made-up face. Martha felt a pang in her chest at the sight of her only child, so beautiful, and yet somehow hardened by the wealth that surrounded her. "Mother," Patricia said, her smile tight, fingers barely grazing Martha's arm in what passed for an embrace. "You're early." Her eyes flicked down to the cookies, then back up. "How nostalgic." Martha's smile never faltered. "Hello, sweetheart. I thought I'd bring a little something sweet, just like old times." Beyond Patricia, Martha caught a glimpse of the foyer, marble floors gleaming beneath a crystal chandelier, flowers arranged with mathematical precision in a vase that probably cost more than Martha's monthly rent. And there, leaning against the ornate banister with a glass of amber liquid in his hand, stood Travis Caldwell, the millionaire who had swept her daughter into this world of excess and privilege. His eyes met hers, and in them Martha saw not just disinterest, but something closer to disdain. It struck her like a physical blow. "So," he drawled, raising his glass in mock salute, "the famous mother finally graces us with her presence, and bearing gifts, no less." Dinner was an elaborate affair served on china that looked too delicate to touch. Martha sat stiffly at one end of the long table, painfully aware of her Bible resting in her lap beneath the crisp linen napkin. Around her, conversation flowed like expensive wine, talk of stock portfolios, vacation homes, and people whose names appeared in magazines. "Tell us, Mrs. Sullivan," Travis called from the head of the table, his voice carrying over the gentle classical music piped through hidden speakers. "What's it like living in that little apartment of yours? Patricia tells me it's quite quaint." Martha felt her daughter stiffen beside her. "It's comfortable," Martha replied evenly, "full of memories." "Memories don't appreciate in value," Travis chuckled, and several guests joined in with polite laughter. Emily, Martha's 15-year-old granddaughter, shot a glare at her stepfather from across the table. Her dark eyes, so like her late father's, flashed with embarrassment and anger. Martha caught her gaze and offered a small, reassuring smile. "Some things have value beyond money, Travis," Martha said softly, one hand unconsciously moving to the Bible in her lap. Travis's eyes tracked the movement, his lips curling into a smirk. "Ah, yes, the Bible. Patricia mentioned you never go anywhere without it." He leaned forward, swirling the wine in his glass. "Tell me, does it actually work? Like a magic wand? For hard times?" The table fell silent. Patricia stared fixedly at her plate, Emily's cheeks flushed crimson. "It reminds me of what matters," Martha replied, her voice steady despite the hurt blooming in her chest. "Faith, family, kindness." Travis raised his eyebrows. "Well, I prefer things with actual returns. Stocks, real estate, things you can touch and count." He gestured expansively at the opulent dining room. "They've certainly done more for me than scripture ever could." After dinner, the party moved to the terrace overlooking the infinity pool that seemed to merge with the darkening sky. Martha stood slightly apart from the others, watching as Travis held court among his admirers. Patricia flitted between groups, the perfect hostess, laughing a touch too loudly at jokes that weren't particularly funny. "I'm sorry about him." Martha turned to find Emily beside her, her young face solemn in the soft landscape lighting. Don't be, sweetheart, Martha said. I've weathered worse storms. Emily glanced back toward the house. I hate it here. Sometimes, she whispered. Everything's about money and appearances. Mom's different now. She gets so upset when I don't fit in with Travis's friends' kids. Martha felt a familiar ache, the pain of watching her family fragment piece by piece. People change, Emily. Sometimes they get lost for a while. Is that what happened to Mum? She got lost? Martha considered her granddaughter's question. Your mother grew up with very little. Sometimes when people finally get what they've always wanted, they hold on too tight. Emily's eyes drifted to the Bible Martha still carried. Why do you always have that with you? Martha smiled, her fingers tracing the worn leather cover. Because it reminds me that I'm never alone, even when I feel like I am. Does it really help? Emily asked, her voice tinged with both skepticism and hope. It helped me raise your mother by myself after your grandfather died. It helped me start a business at our kitchen table when no one would hire a woman in her 40s with no college degree. Martha looked out at the glittering pool. And it helps me now sitting at a table where I'm clearly not welcome. Emily's hand found Martha's and squeezed gently. I want you here, she said fiercely. The evening grew increasingly uncomfortable as Travis's remarks became less veiled and more pointed. He stationed himself beside Martha as dessert was served, watching with amusement as she declined a glass of expensive champagne. So, Martha, he said loud enough for nearby guests to hear, Patricia tells me you worked in, what was it, filing, typing? Bookkeeping, Martha corrected him gently, for small businesses in Brooklyn. Travis nodded with exaggerated interest. Fascinating. And now you're retired? Living on Social Security, I presume? Martha felt, rather than saw Patricia's warning glance. I sold my business last month, she said simply. Your business? Travis laughed. What business could you possibly have owned? Sullivan Financial Services, Martha replied. I started it at my kitchen table after my husband passed. Just me at first, then eventually 12 employees. Travis frowned slightly, as though trying to reconcile this information with his preconceived notions. Well, he said finally, recovering his smirk, I'm sure it was adequate, a small operation. Martha said nothing, but opened her Bible, removing a folded document from between its pages. What's that? Travis asked, his curiosity piqued despite himself. Martha simply smiled. Nothing important, just a memory. As she tucked the paper back into the Bible, Travis's eyes narrowed, a flash of uncertainty crossing his face for the first time that evening. What was the old woman hiding in that ragged book of hers? And why did her smile suddenly make him feel so unsettled? The night wore on. Martha found herself cornered by Travis's business associates, who asked condescending questions about her simple life while checking their watches. Patricia hovered at the edges of these conversations, tense and watchful, as though afraid of what her mother might say. In the kitchen, while retrieving more ice for drinks, Martha overheard Travis speaking to Patricia in harsh, hushed tones. Why the hell does she still carry that Bible everywhere? It's embarrassing, Patricia. My friends are texting me jokes about it. I know, Patricia hissed back. Just get through tonight, please, Travis. I invited her because you insisted. The least she could do is try to fit in. Martha's heart sank as she heard her daughter's reply. She doesn't know how. She's always been like this, stuck in her ways, embarrassingly old-fashioned. Martha slipped away before they could discover her, the ice forgotten. She found herself in a quiet hallway lined with professional family portraits, Patricia, Travis and Emily, all perfectly styled and smiling without warmth. No photos of Patricia's father, no pictures of Martha. She opened her Bible, seeking comfort in familiar passages, when Emily found her. Grandma, are you okay? Martha closed, the book quickly blinking back tears. Just resting my feet, sweetheart. Emily sat beside her on the bench. I heard them, she admitted quietly. Mum and Travis, they're jerks. Your mother is... Martha struggled to find the right words. She's trying to belong in this world she's chosen. By forgetting where she came from? Emily challenged. By letting him make fun of you all night? Martha sighed. Sometimes people make choices that hurt others because they're hurting themselves. By 10 o'clock, most guests had departed. Only Travis's closest friends remained, gathered in the living room with after-dinner drinks. Martha sat in an armchair slightly removed from the circle, her Bible open on her lap. She wasn't reading, merely finding comfort in its presence as the conversation swirled around her. "You know what I don't understand," Travis said suddenly, his voice louder than necessary, tinged with the warmth of expensive scotch. "Why people cling to religion in the modern age." He gestured toward Martha. "Like that Bible. No offense, Martha, but what has faith ever actually done for you?" The room went quiet. Patricia shot Travis a warning look, which he ignored. "Faith gave me strength," Martha answered simply, "when there was nothing else." Travis scoffed. "Strength doesn't pay bills. Strength doesn't put food on the table." "It helped me do those things," Martha countered gently. "After my husband died, when Patricia was 8, I had nothing. No money, no college degree, no family to help." "And look how far you got," Travis said, gesturing around the room with mock grandeur. "While people like me built empires, people with faith just survived." Martha felt something shift inside her, not anger exactly, but a quiet resolve. She'd spent decades being quiet, being gracious, turning the other cheek. Perhaps it was time for something different. "Travis," she said, her voice stronger now, "what exactly do you know about my life?" The question seemed to catch him off. "God." "What's to know? You're Patricia's mother, a widow, a religious woman of modest means who worked some clerical job." Martha nodded slowly. "That's what you see when you look at me, a simple old woman clutching a Bible." She closed the book and stood up, suddenly appearing taller somehow. "But there's something you should know about judging books by their covers." The room held its collective breath, everyone sensing a shift in the atmosphere. What would the gentle old woman do next? And why was there suddenly a gleam of something powerful in her eyes? "Patricia," Martha said, turning to her daughter, "would you mind if I used your office for a moment? I need to make a call." Patricia blinked in surprise. "Now it's late, Mother." "It's important," Martha insisted. Travis waved a dismissive hand. "Let her use the office, Patricia, though I doubt anyone she knows is awake at this hour." Martha thanked them and disappeared down the hallway, her Bible still in hand. The remaining guests exchanged glances, sensing the undercurrent of tension. "What's she up to?" someone whispered. Travis shrugged, refilling his glass. "Probably calling her pastor for moral support," he joked, though his laughter sounded slightly forced. 10 minutes later, Martha returned, her face composed but somehow different, more confident, almost luminous. She resumed her seat without explanation. "Everything all right?" Patricia asked, her voice unnaturally high. "Perfect," Martha replied. "Just confirming some details for tomorrow." Travis raised an eyebrow. "Church plans?" "Actually," Martha said, "I have a meeting with my financial team at 10. I needed to make sure they had all the necessary paperwork." "Financial team," Travis repeated, the words sounding foreign in relation to Martha. Martha nodded. "For the transfer." "What transfer?" Patricia asked, confusion evident in her face. Martha opened her Bible once more and removed the folded document she had shown briefly earlier. This time, she unfolded it completely, revealing not a personal memento as everyone had assumed, but legal paperwork bearing the letterhead of one of Manhattan's most prestigious financial firms. "The transfer of Sullivan Financial Services to Reynolds and Partners," Martha explained, her voice matter-of-fact. "The sale was finalized last week." Travis set his glass down with a thud. "Sale? What are you talking about?" "My company," Martha said simply. "The clerical job you've been mocking all evening. I built it from nothing into one of the most respected financial services firms in Brooklyn. Reynolds and Partners wanted to expand their East Coast operations." She paused, allowing the weight of her words to settle. "They made an offer I couldn't refuse." The room fell completely silent. Even the ice in drinks seemed to stop clinking. "This," Travis stammered, all pretense of superiority suddenly evaporated. "This is some kind of joke." Martha shook her head. No joke, Travis. Just business. Patricia stared at her mother, shock etched across her features. How much? She whispered. Martha smiled gently. Enough to set up college funds for Emily and any future grandchildren. Enough to donate substantially to the women's shelter, where we stayed for 3 months after your father died. Enough to live comfortably for the rest of my life. She paused. And enough to never have to pretend to be someone I'm not. Travis's face had drained of color. He reached for the document, but Martha calmly returned it to its place between the pages of her Bible. All this time, Patricia said, her voice barely audible, you never said anything. Would it have mattered? Martha asked simply. Would. You have treated me differently if you'd known I wasn't just a poor old woman with a Bible. Patricia flinched, as though she'd been slapped. Emily moved to her grandmother's side, eyes wide with wonder and newfound respect. You're kind of amazing, Grandma, she whispered. Martha squeezed her hand. Not amazing, sweetheart, just persistent. Have you ever judged someone based on appearances only to discover later how wrong you were? If you've experienced something similar or know someone who has, please share your thoughts in the comments. The remaining guests departed quickly after Martha's revelation, murmuring awkward goodbyes and avoiding Travis's eyes. Soon, only family remained in the cavernous living room. Martha, Patricia, Travis, and Emily, suspended in a silence thick with unspoken words. Travis was the first to recover, his businessman's instincts kicking in. Martha, he said, his tone suddenly warm and respectful, you should have told us about your success. We would have celebrated with you. Martha regarded him steadily. Would you? Earlier this evening you called my faith a coping mechanism for being poor. Travis winced. I was just joking, of course. You know how these dinner parties get. Everyone trying to be clever. At someone else's expense, Emily muttered. Patricia shot her daughter a warning glance before turning to Martha. Mother, I had no idea. The business had grown so much. You always lived so modestly. I lived according to my values, Martha corrected gently. I never needed multiple homes or designer clothes to feel successful. Travis cleared his throat. Well, now that we know, perhaps we should discuss some investment opportunities. I have several ventures that could provide significant returns on your capital. Martha smiled. Thank you, Travis, but my financial advisors have already established my portfolio. Very conservative, focused on charitable trusts and ethical investments. Travis's smile faltered slightly. You should at least consider diversifying into... Travis, Martha interrupted, her voice gentle but firm. I've been managing money, my own and others, for 45 years. I'll be fine. For perhaps the first time in his adult life, Travis Caldwell found himself completely speechless. Later that night, after Travis had retreated to his study with a bottle of scotch, Patricia found Martha in the guest bedroom, carefully repacking her overnight bag. You're not leaving? Patricia asked from the doorway. It's late. I think it's best, Martha replied, folding her nightgown. Patricia stepped into the room, closing the door behind her. For a moment, mother and daughter regarded each other, in silence, two women separated by more than just wealth. Why didn't you ever tell me? Patricia finally asked, her voice small. Martha sat on the edge of the bed. Would it have changed anything, Patricia? Would knowing your mother was financially successful have made you prouder to introduce me to your friends? Patricia flinched. That's not fair, isn't it? Tonight, before you knew about the sale, you let your husband mock me in front of strangers. You laughed when he belittled my faith. I didn't mean to, Patricia whispered, though they both knew it wasn't entirely true. Martha sighed. When you married Travis, you seemed to adopt not just his lifestyle, but his values. Money became the measure of worth. Status became more important than kindness. You don't understand the pressure, Patricia insisted. This world, Travis's world, has expectations. I understand pressure, Martha countered. I raised you. Alone, working 16-hour days, studying accounting at night while you slept. I built a business when banks wouldn't lend to a woman without a husband's signature. I never once compromised my values. A tear slipped down Patricia's cheek. I wanted to give Emily everything I never had. Things, Martha corrected gently. You wanted to give her things. But what about values? What about character? What has she learned, watching how you and Travis treat people you consider beneath you? Patricia had no answer, the truth of her mother's words hanging heavily between them. As Martha zipped her bag closed, she noticed a shadow beneath the door. Emily, listening silently from the hallway. What would tomorrow bring, Martha wondered? Would this revelation bridge the chasm that had grown between them, or would it only deepen the divide? Morning arrived with uncomfortable silence. At the breakfast table, Travis had apparently decided on a strategy of exaggerated respect, pulling out Martha's chair, offering her the financial section of the newspaper, asking pointed questions about market trends. I was thinking, he announced as the maid poured. Coffee? We should have a proper celebration. For Martha's business success and retirement. Something befitting someone of her stature. Martha stirred honey into her tea. That's not necessary, Travis. Nonsense. Family should celebrate achievements. We could invite some of my banking colleagues, people you should know now that you're in a different financial bracket. Patricia watched the exchange with wary eyes, uncertain of her role in this new dynamic. Emily, still in pajamas despite Travis's disapproval, rolled her eyes. Grandma doesn't need your banker friends, Travis. She already has financial advisors. Emily, Patricia cautioned. Martha placed her hand over her daughter's. It's all right, she turned to Travis. I appreciate the thought, but I've never defined myself by my wealth or social connections. That hasn't changed. Travis's smile tightened. Of course. I just thought... I know what you thought, Martha interrupted gently. But I'm still the same woman I was yesterday. The only difference is that now you know I'm not poor. The truth hung in the air, undeniable and damning. Travis had only changed. His behavior because of money, not out of respect for Martha herself, nor remorse for his previous treatment of her. Emily broke the uncomfortable silence. Grandma, would it be okay if I came to visit you next weekend? I'd like to hear more about how you built your business. Martha's face softened. I'd love that, sweetheart. Patricia looked up sharply. Next weekend? But that's the Caldwell's yacht party. Travis's father is expecting all of us. I'd rather visit Grandma, Emily said firmly. Travis set down his coffee cup with a sharp clink. Now, Emily, family obligations. Grandma is family too, Emily countered, a new confidence in her voice. And I want to learn from her. The tension reached its breaking point that afternoon as Martha prepared to leave. Her modest suitcase waited by the door while Travis hovered nearby, still trying to establish a connection to her newfound wealth. Martha, before you go, I'd love to show you some prospectuses for a few investment opportunities. Given your business acumen, I think you'd appreciate the potential returns. Martha smiled politely. Another time, perhaps. Patricia emerged. From the kitchen, her face strained. Mother, don't you think you're being a bit hasty? Travis is only trying to help. Is he? Martha asked quietly. Travis stiffened. What does that mean? Martha looked between her daughter and son-in-law, weighing her words carefully. For years, she had held her tongue, swallowed her. Hurt turned the other cheek. But sometimes truth was the greatest kindness. It means, she said finally, that last night Travis mocked everything I value. He belittled my faith, my work, my character, all while you sat silently beside him. Her eyes shifted to Travis. And now that you know I have money, suddenly, I'm worthy of your respect and financial advice. Travis's face flushed. That's absurd. I was simply making conversation last night. You were being cruel, Emily interjected from the staircase, where she had been listening unnoticed. You both were. Patricia turned to her daughter, shocked. Emily! It's true, Mom. You let him talk to Grandma like she was nothing. You laughed when he made fun of her Bible. The same Bible she read to you when you were sick as a kid. She told me about that. Martha opened her Bible, removing a faded photograph. Patricia, at 8 years old, sitting on Martha's lap as they read together. She placed it on the console table. I've never been ashamed of who I am, Martha said softly. Not when we lived in that tiny apartment after your father died. Not when I had to take you to work with me because we couldn't afford childcare. Not when I carried this Bible to meetings with bankers who didn't think a woman should run a business. She picked up her suitcase. The question is, Patricia, are you ashamed of who you've become? The question lingered in the air, unanswered but understood. Martha kissed Emily goodbye, promising to call her later. Then, with dignity that no wealth could buy, she walked out the door and down the long driveway to where her taxi waited. She had just settled into the back seat when she heard running footsteps. Looking back, she saw Patricia hurrying toward her, barefoot on the gravel, something clutched in her hand. "Wait!" Patricia called. Martha asked the driver to hold for a moment and opened her door. Patricia stood there, slightly breathless, holding the faded photograph Martha had left behind. "You forgot this," she said. Martha shook her head. "I left it for you, to remember." Patricia looked down at the photo, tracing the outline of her younger self with one manicured finger. "I do remember," she whispered. "I remember everything." For a moment, mother and daughter regarded each other in silence. Then Patricia spoke again, her voice thick with emotion. "I'm sorry, Mom, for last night, for the past few years." She swallowed hard. "Emily's right. I've changed, and not for the better." Martha felt the wall around her heart begin to soften. "We all change, sweetheart. The question is whether we recognize it in time to change back." Patricia's eyes filled with tears. "Is it too late?" "It's never too late," Martha assured her, taking her daughter's hand. "Not while we still have breath." From the house they heard Travis calling for Patricia, his voice sharp with impatience. Patricia glanced back, then made a decision. "Can I ride with you? Just anywhere. We could get coffee, talk, like we used to." Martha smiled, moving over to make room. "I'd like that." As the taxi pulled away, Martha noticed Emily watching from an upstairs window. The girl raised her hand in a small wave, and Martha waved back, hope blooming in her chest for the first time in years. 1 year later, Martha sat on a park bench in Brooklyn, her faithful Bible beside her. The autumn air carried the scent of falling leaves and new beginnings. She checked her watch, almost time. "Grandma!" Martha looked up to see Emily hurrying toward her, followed by Patricia at a more measured pace. Both carried coffee cups from Martha's favorite local shop. "Sorry we're late," Emily said, dropping onto the bench beside her grandmother. At 16, she had bloomed into a young woman of confidence and compassion. Mom insisted on getting those almond cookies you like. Patricia smiled, handing Martha a paper bag. "They're still warm." Martha accepted the gift with a nod of thanks. So much had changed in a year. Patricia had moved out of the mansion 6 months ago, taking Emily with her to a modest but comfortable apartment just 20 minutes from Martha's home. Travis had fought the separation bitterly, especially when Patricia refused alimony, insisting on supporting herself with the job she'd taken at a community nonprofit. "How was the interview?" Martha asked, as Patricia settled on her other side. Patricia sighed. "Challenging. Running a financial literacy program for low-income women isn't exactly what my business degree prepared me for." "But you got it, right?" Emily pressed. Patricia nodded, a small smile breaking through. "I start next month." "I'm proud of you," Martha said simply. Patricia's eyes glistened. "I'm learning from the best." They sat in comfortable silence, 3 generations of women finding their way back to each other. Martha's Bible lay open on her lap, the edges of the check from her business sale just visible between the pages, the check she had ultimately used to establish a foundation for women entrepreneurs. "Do you miss it?" Emily asked suddenly. "Your company?" Martha considered the question. "Sometimes, but I built it to help others find security and independence. Now, the foundation does that on a larger scale." Patricia leaned her head against her mother's shoulder, a gesture of affection that would have been unthinkable a year ago. "You always said that true wealth isn't what you have, but what you give. And who you are," Martha added softly, "when no one's impressed by you." The afternoon light filtered through the trees, gilding their faces with warmth. Martha looked at her daughter and granddaughter, both finding their way back to authentic lives guided not by external validation, but by internal values. "You know what I miss?" Patricia said after a while. "Those lemon cookies you used to make. The ones I was too embarrassed to appreciate at Travis's dinner party." Martha smiled. "Some things can always be remade," she said, closing her Bible gently, "with the right ingredients and enough love." As they walked home together, three women united by blood and renewed respect, Martha felt a profound sense of gratitude. Not for the financial success that had finally earned her son-in-law's fleeting regard, but for the faith that had sustained her through decades of quiet persistence. In the end, it wasn't money that had revealed the truth, it was character. And character, unlike wealth, could never be diminished by mockery or enhanced by praise. It simply was, enduring like the words in her well-worn Bible, a foundation no storm could wash away. Congratulations. Type 9 in the comments so that I know you stayed until the end with me. Thank you for watching, and until tomorrow's story on this same channel.